How about another Milroe miracle? We saw it last year, 4th and 31. How about 1st and 25 with less than a minute to play and you're down 1? And he goes to the freshman, the 17-year-old Ryan Williams. My goodness. They win the game in dramatic fashion, 41-34 in an instant classic in Tuscaloosa. The dude had almost 500 total yards of offense. CBS Sports HQ is built by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. A whole new Saturday tour takes us to Tuscaloosa. The president of the Pate State Freights, Josh Pate, in Tuscaloosa. What did we just witness?
Hakeem, you know I love chalices. I have them all over my set. I decorate my set with them. Chalice, the plural of chalice. We call this one a 5-chalice classic. Haven't seen one so far this year. You know, there was talk going into this one that the playoff may downgrade the value or maybe the passion and the urgency that's placed on these games. And who knows, maybe in time, case by case, that happens. But as you well know, because you've consumed the sport for a long time, as I know, as the folks watching know, Georgia-Alabama is like its own season. It is a war. It's a rivalry within itself, almost like independent of standings. And I know that's a little bit romanticized, but dude, it's college football. Like that's what the sport's built on. And it was just bleeding out of this game tonight. Unbelievable. You're sitting there trying to write your headlines at halftime, and you're saying, man, things are happening to Kirby Smart's Georgia that I've never seen happen to Kirby Smart's Georgia. Then you delete all that because you got to rewrite your game, or in the fourth quarter, Georgia, biggest come-from-behind win in maybe program history, and then, boom, you remember Ryan Williams, not old enough to vote, but old enough to take over a game on the biggest stage the sport has to offer. Brother, we saw it all tonight. We saw it all tonight.
It was incredible. It was a joy to watch. Jalen Milroe had an absolute bonkers line. I mean, 491 total yards. That is the kind of stuff that gets you to New York. What did you see from Jalen Milroe? Because they start 28-0, and then it was a little bit of some things that weren't going so right in the second half. But then when they needed it, he steps up and throws the 75-yard touchdown.
He did. You know, sometimes we see that. We see a team get so far out in front, especially in the college game, that it's just human nature inevitability that there's like the little rubber band slingshot effect. You try and sit on the ball. You try and bleed the clock. You drive Meemaw crazy at home because she's yelling at the TV, just keep doing what got you here so far. But I thought in the postgame, Kalen DeBoer got asked about Jalen Milroe, and he said, you know, yes, he showed a ton tonight. Yes, he really stepped up when it counted. And yes, he threw the ball incredibly. He started saying that stuff started showing the practice week before the Wisconsin game. And then in the Wisconsin game, it started to show a little bit more. But he said we were really limited in how much we threw the ball that day. We kind of throttled it down a little bit early. But he said there is a confidence they have in him, paraphrasing now, that maybe they didn't quite have at the beginning of the season. They've seen maturation. A couple of the throws, he kept talking to Keem about how intentional they were, how the look was so intentional, how the placement was so intentional. You give the receiver room a lot of credit. You give the O-line a lot of credit. But the big question was this guy who took Michael Penix from an afterthought at Indiana to a Heisman contender, leading them to the national title game at Washington. What could he do with Jalen Milroe? It's early. But, Hakeem, I don't know that he'll face a better defense than what Kirby Smart trots out there. And I'm looking at 41 on the board here against a team that hadn't given up a touchdown in Georgia coming into tonight. So, man, they ran it up in the first quarter. They held on. They answered when they needed to. And you got yourself a bona fide Heisman contender at quarterback in Tuscaloosa. Yeah, the next defense he probably sees, as you know, is when they trot up to Knoxville. And we'll see about that, because you know what Josh Heupel's trying to build there, that he wants that defense to be elite. Georgia's defense is elite. Alabama's defense has always been elite. Carson Beck, I learned something new about Carson Beck. Whatever was going on in between his ears in the first half, I forgot about it. Because what he did in the second half kind of showed me that this kid can step up in the big moments when all is stacked against him. What did you learn about Carson Beck on this night? There's a lot of mental resolve there. I mean, these guys who have been through it, like if you've landed the starting quarterback job at Georgia or Alabama or Texas or any of these big-time programs, Ohio State, mentally you're not going to get rattled easily. Let me put it that way. It's possible, but it's not going to happen easily. They never would have trusted you with the job otherwise. So Carson Beck, when we were there in spring, Hakeem, and they had landed a top recruiting class, they had brought in a couple of guys in the portal, all they wanted to talk about was Carson Beck. Carson Beck coming back is the biggest shot of adrenaline this program could have. Because, yeah, we'll have good athletes, but are we going to surround an average quarterback with good athletes? That's going to get us to 10 wins. Carson Beck's more than just good. So you start questioning him at halftime. And I don't think that people really properly understand what an average human would do. Even if you had the God-given physical ability, the average human mind would go into a total turtle shell. You would be thinking about what folks are saying about you. You would be thinking about how embarrassed you are and potentially how exposed you're about to be. Hakeem, you'd be thinking about your draft stock. This is a guy who stands to make life-changing money this upcoming April in the NFL draft, and so you're thinking about that. Actually, you're not, because he's not thinking about any of it. If he was, he couldn't have done what he did in the second half. And it's not a blessing to be down as big as they were, but it's a blessing in that you got no other choice. You just got to chuck it deep. And you got some young DBs there for Alabama that they were able to take advantage of up until literally the last time he threw the ball in the fourth quarter. But there's a reason why they built this giant 12-team playoff safety net under games like this, because you watch an effort like that. It's not the end of the world. There's a low margin for error now, but not the end of the world. And I think we'll see Carson Beck in several more meaningful moments this year.
Yeah, even with the 12-team playoff, these games still matter. Okay, that's what it is. A whole new Saturday tour takes us to Tuscaloosa, and perhaps we have a new look atop the rankings as Alabama poised to take the #1 ranking in the nation. Josh Pate authoring yet another wild game on his tour. Josh, we appreciate it. How about that? The president of Pate State Freights, the AD, the chancellor, would have you. For more awesome content, check out Josh Pate's college football show, delivering college football the way you want it. Join Josh 3 times a week on YouTube, 8 Eastern time. You can also listen to the podcast version as well.